Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. So in this video, this is the first of a series of videos when I start to go into other companies that I want to totally nerd out about. And the next company is Airbnb. And I actually chose to take a negative video about Airbnb because people tend to think that Airbnb is a total monopoly and hosts love them and guests love Airbnb. And I have a very special and unique viewpoint because I actually run an Airbnb. I have one unit that was opened last year in October, and I have two units that are being finished and are soon going to be opened. And I was in and still am in love with the concept of Airbnb, but I found out that they're not a monopoly. And we actually get most of our bookings from booking.com. So I'm doing research if I should invest money into Airbnb or booking.com, and obviously what price. And this video is part of it. And I wanted to start with this again because this is a little bit of eye-opening video that Airbnb does make mistakes, and I'm going to comment on those mistakes where I can with my experience as a host. So as always, please make sure you like the video. Please make sure you hit subscribe. And why not check out me on Twitter, where I talk a lot about this stuff. Vince is bullish is my Twitter symbol. So see you there. Let's begin.
You know what? Sometimes I honestly think that Airbnb is trying to lose customers. They're just trying to do stuff to get people not to book on Airbnb and then go straight to Vrbo, to not book a house and then maybe book a hotel on Airbnb instead. Airbnb's made a lot of really stupid mistakes over the last 5 years. And as much as we like to talk nice about Airbnb, I think we need to talk about some of these mistakes, and maybe public discord on what they're doing wrong might get them to fix a few things. So this video.
So again, they have competitors, and the only real advantage that Airbnb has is the network effect. So the more people that list on them, the more valuable they become to customers. But it's true, I have seen this, heard this, that they have made mistakes, especially in the COVID times, where they really effed over the hosts with really no good reason. And a lot of people went to VRBO. And my biggest surprise was that booking.com, which used to be only for hotels, super popular in Europe, have added a feature that you can basically list your Airbnb on booking.com. And we have been getting most of our bookings through that platform, and I love their customer service. I love their efficiency. There's somehow I have a better experience with them than Airbnb, but let's continue.
Daft compilation targeted right at Airbnb. Let's go. So funny story, a friend of mine was trying to book a property and she couldn't because she was screened as a party risk. And then no more than 48 hours later, a host sent me a message going, "Hey Sean, could you do a video about how Airbnb is really screwing up their party screening and preventing people from booking houses when they've got a new account?" This person who reached out to me asking for booking advice going, "I can't book an Airbnb. I'm trying 2 separate accounts and it won't let me. What do I do?" We couldn't fix the problem. She found the same house on Vrbo and she booked on Vrbo instead. And then, of course, she said they need to figure this out or they're going to lose customers. Well, it looks like they already did, didn't they? They just lost one to Airbnb's party ban algorithm. And that's not the only thing here that they screwed up. In an attempt to prevent parties, they also designated a maximum of 16 guests on Airbnb. And for the longest time, you could not bring more than 16 people to a house to stay, even if the home could sleep 30 people. It was one of their preventative measures against parties. I did notice that they put 16 plus now on Airbnb when searching, which means I think they reneged that policy, and that's really what we're hoping for here. One thing that we would all like Airbnb to take back, we've been waiting for years, hosts, is their decision to take our money during COVID. The first week of April, Airbnb wiped out everybody's calendars due to this travel pandemic. And what they did is they refunded everybody regardless of circumstance, just because of COVID. Now the thing is if Airbnb wants to get people money and be a good sport, cool, but they abandoned hosts, violated the refund policies, and it was against the terms of service. And now there are class action lawsuit after class action lawsuit being filed against Airbnb over this breach of contract when giving away these refunds. Now Airbnb did come back and say, hey, we'll give you all like a small piece of what you would have made for the unbooked nights, whatever. They try to make it right, but they didn't make it all the way right. And they cost the collective host community probably tens of millions of dollars, and they gave us back pennies on the dollar for the inconvenience. Now, some cities stayed empty for a long while because of travel bans and regulations. Some areas rebounded fast. Thankfully, here in Texas, we had 4 or 6 bad weeks, and then everything was cool. Now, a lot of us hosts also got the benefit of the revenge travel that came. It wasn't all doom and gloom forever, But Airbnb still made a pretty bad decision, and they stood by that bad decision, and it cost them a lot of hosts at that time. You know, it's really funny. If we're going to bring up the past, I'm going to bring up the past. They made a mistake right away. You see, when Brian Chesky and his two buddies started Airbnb, they got a booking maybe 2009, I think. They were in San Francisco. They rented out their living room to somebody to stay on an air mattress, and that was air bed and breakfast, air mattress, bed and breakfast. And they had a guest. They succeeded. And then they just gave up. They stopped. You know what they did instead? They tried for months to build a website that they were then going to call roommates.com. And then they finally went online to look for roommates.com and realized that what they've been trying to build for months already existed. And they're like, oops. The only reason why they all did Airbnb is they were back home on the East Coast with family for the holidays, and they're eating going, what are you guys doing with your lives? Why don't you guys just move home? And they're like, no, mom and dad, we've got a business. We're working on a business. We got something cool. They're like, what is it? And the guys are like, Airbnb. So they finally committed to this Airbnb thing, and then they finally got some venture capital, and they made it happen. But the fact that they delayed years off this potential disruptive technology curve cost them a lot of money. And their valuation when they went public probably could have been much greater if they had that 2-year head start. Here's a weird one. This is a mistake.
Okay, how could the valuation have been better? The valuation was astronomical when they went public, and especially in the middle of COVID. So that's beside the point. This guy is obviously doesn't watch my channel, and he's not a stock analyst. What I really want to point out here is this is a double-edged sword when it comes to, because you can think that, this is a woke San Francisco company. And it's true, it's easier to book on bookings.com, but they act more as an agent and they don't take any responsibility for the guests. And I have seen this myself, because we have had some trouble with guests on booking.com, and all they could help us do is reach the guests so that we can talk over the mistakes, because they are made for hotels, right? So when you check out of a hotel, then they have your credit card. So, the cleaners check the room. And then if you have broken something, then they can right away take it from the customer's card. So obviously when you rent Airbnb style apartments, you don't meet the customer when they check out. And if there is, claims and broken things or stolen things, the only way that you can handle them is you have to reach the customers. And so far we have been lucky because the customers have been willing to pay, but this is a bigger risk with booking.com. So Airbnb is much better on handling this, but then they start screening the customers with this party protection and, certain other things. And as he said, it does become a double-edged sword. And I cannot decide if this is good or bad, but it's definitely a difference between booking.com and Airbnb.
They made for a long, long time, and I think they did a version of fixing it. They used to claim a security deposit on Airbnb, but you know what? It was a sham. There was never a security deposit. They never pre-authorized the card. They never collected the money. Here's how it went. If a guest booked and you marked that you had a security deposit, Airbnb would use that as an authority to charge the guest for stuff that you claimed were damages that they found the guest at fault for. Normally, what had happened is without a security deposit, if a guest damaged your property and you said, hey, the guest broke this chair, they'd go to the guest and go, hey, you broke this chair. It is your fault. You need to pay. And then the guest would go, no, I'm not going to pay. So then Airbnb would have to pay you, the host, out of their pocket. See, when you mark a security deposit, all it does is give Airbnb a little extra leverage to take it out of the guest pocket. By marking security deposit, all you were doing was potentially saving Airbnb money in a time that there's a dispute that the guest wouldn't pay. You were going to get paid either way. See, Airbnb was trying to save money on payouts by having this sham of a security deposit. Now what they've updated though is if you have something like Owner Res, a channel manager that collects a security deposit because they're starting to respect third-party softwares now because they understand their place in the industry, they'll let you really collect a security deposit as long as you dot your I's, cross your T's and everything. Airbnb also has made a mistake that's similar to this, which is they're trying really hard to compete with Vrbo, Booking.com and everybody else. So they've adopted this simplified pricing model, and it could be cool if you wanted it and you chose to do it. And it basically makes your payout model the same as Booking.com, where the guest pays $100 and then they deduct money from you and they don't add any fees to the guest. Simplifies the pricing model, so it's easier for the guest to understand. This is important for Europe because they're competing directly with Booking.com and they want adoption from Booking.com customers. That's why they did it. But what they then did is, without any warning, they just switched you. If you were in Europe or you were using a channel manager that was based out of Europe, anything like that, they would make you simplified pricing without your consent. And what that did is everybody's prices all of a sudden weren't getting the 11 or 14% markup, and then everybody was giving away money that they did not know they were giving away. And this was happening in the United States. I have students with softwares that are based internationally, and because they are attached to an international channel manager, they've been forced to go into simplified pricing. And without any word of warning, all of a sudden, you're giving away 14 or 15% of your gross revenue because the guest isn't paying their service fee anymore and you didn't know it. That was a huge gap.
I don't know if this is true. We have an international channel manager, and I feel that it was very clear that Airbnb said that they're going over to a different pricing model. So Booking.com, you say that we are charging $100 a night, let's say, and then they take a commission that is 15%. So you know that you're getting $85 out. Whereas normally on Airbnb, you say, we want $85 for the room, and then Airbnb adds a fee to the customers on that, so they end up paying, it's actually very close, so they end up paying $100. The two is almost identical in the fees. It's just, from which angle you go at it. And when we added this channel manager, they warned that Airbnb would start using the simplified model. So they take they take a provision instead of adding a fee. So I don't know what he's talking about here.
They did a couple other things to really spite some hosts, which are also driving people to Vrbo. Not only that they're not letting people book when their account is new or they're too local, and some of the party things that they're doing, like they need to really rework that party algorithm. And not only that limit of 16 guests, because for the longest time, people would have to go to Vrbo for that. Other things that they've done. A guest now has 72 hours to report a problem, right? And they can try to get a refund within 72 hours. Here's the thing, why did they change that? If you guys read the terms of service in Airbnb's refund policy, it states that Airbnb can choose to go behind your back more than 24 hours in the future if they deem it appropriate. So Airbnb's street curb, we have got a 24-hour rule thing, that was never really exercised in full anyway. If a guest missed that 24-hour mark and then a week or two later they said, oh, it was really bad, we left, we're upset, blah, 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 Airbnb could still go back in your pocket 2 weeks later. We've had plenty of times where Airbnb has made these changes and just did whatever they wanted to 24 hours aside. So now all this is doing is it's encouraging a percentage of the travel community who knows that they can get refunds to wait even longer, to book longer stays, to wait to have a problem till later. So now us hosts who have to deal with problematic refund hunting guests, we don't get to find out in a day. We have to find out in 2 or 3 days. They get to ride the clock for 3.
So this is really bad. I know that because we're part of some hosting communities, and I know that there is a specific percentage of people who are basically hunting for any mistakes so they can get free deals from you. Luckily, we haven't met these guests. I don't know if it's because we're in Europe and this is more of an American thing to whine and be a victim until you get paying something. I don't know. Again, I can't comment on this because even with Booking.com, we of course we had some disagreements with customers, but we have always been able to handle it face to face with them. But I know from the hosting communities that Airbnb super much sides on the customer side all the time, and it's really pissing off some hosts, and it actually pushes a lot of hosts to set up their own website, go to multi-channels, meaning also list the property on VRBO, Expedia, Booking.com. And for these reasons, they could have a monopoly and they could be much stronger if they don't piss off the people and make them, branch out and go into other lines to find customers, because it's kind of your livelihood, right? So I don't blame the people.
And try to get free stuff. This is super bad for host protection, because we have to deal with guests that lie. It's just the truth. Guests will lie. There's a phrase I learned in sales. It's buyers are liars. People, when it comes to their money, it comes to their autonomy, when they're at odds with the company, they'll say whatever to win. And unfortunately, us hosts, we get to see that every day. So Airbnb is not protecting us with the 72-hour rule, and they should take it back. And now further, to add insult to injury, if within this process, they decide to cancel a reservation and they deem it to be your fault, right? This is a decision that they get to make, and they just get to do this to you. They can take a percentage of the gross revenue of the reservation as a fee from you, because they're going to give the guest a refund, and because they're no longer getting that host fee, they're going to charge you a percentage of the reservation up to $1,000. They can make money off of your back because they sided with the guest, and now they're not going to lose any money siding with the guest. This again is a way that they're not protecting hosts, which are the most important part of the platform. What are hosts doing? They're going to Vrbo. They're getting with people like Mark from Boostly, and they're creating their own websites, and they're doing direct bookings, and they're doing all sorts of stuff to not need Airbnb anymore. One of the reasons why people continue to use Airbnb, they have what I would call enterprise level software for the little people. Their dynamic pricing stuff, like their rule sets and their multi-calendar and their automated messages for operations. These are all great things, but they come with a cost, which is the service fee. They're starting to come with other costs, which is Airbnb's semi-tyrannical approach to running their business model, a totalitarian approach to running their business model, where we no longer get the autonomy that we should have as the provider of the space. Airbnb also likes to try to legally say that the guests are ours, and that's actually not true. The guests sign up for Airbnb. The guests sign up to use Airbnb and they pay Airbnb. And then Airbnb handles that money with a company called Airbnb Payments or something like that. And then we get paid by Airbnb after everything is kosher. Airbnb then can still have final authority on the money and take the money, restructure it, do whatever they want. And at the same time, they're trying to say that our contract with the guest is direct. When somebody enters into a booking relationship with us through Airbnb, Airbnb has no liability or anything. If that was true, Airbnb wouldn't have any ability to claw back money that they gave us for the guest, because technically that payment should be direct. If Airbnb is using simplified pricing, for example, and we are paying the fee, then the guest would be paying us directly. We'd be paying Airbnb a fee, and if there's a cancellation or anything like that, we would be the one remitting the refund in that case. Wouldn't it be true? Since Airbnb is the one managing the money, I think that their contract is inaccurate, and I will argue that till I'm blue in the face. I've said it for years. And this is a gaffe because it could be a legal problem for Airbnb one day. If Airbnb is clawing back all this money for refunds and, canceling and giving guests refunds without even talking to us, because they do that sometimes. They'll just make a decision and refund the guest if we don't get any chance to make our case. This could lead to lawsuits where they just lose big. Now, maybe they've got some really...
Again, this is a very interesting video for Airbnb bulls or people considering investing in the company, because I do see this. Luckily, we have had very good guests so far, but Airbnb is notorious for this. If you join, for example, this guy has a Facebook group with over 30 or 40,000 hosts, and you can see that, of course, Airbnb has a very tough call to make, because they need to keep their customers and they need to make the platform super safe for customers, right? But on Booking.com, it's clear that they are just an agent that helps you book with the hotel. And then when you go to the hotel, then it's between you and the hotel. So if your room is dirty, you go down to reception and you fix it with the hotel and you ask them for a discount, and Booking.com is not involved. And this is where what I see from the host community is that Airbnb is very much always siding on the customer's side, and sometimes they're completely unreasonable about giving refunds, and all it does is it pisses off the hosts, and then they start going into these other channels like Vrbo, Booking.com, and it really makes Airbnb not that powerful anymore. So I've seen this in firsthand from other people. I mean, we are multi-channel. We are on Airbnb, Booking.com, Vrbo, and most of our bookings do come from Booking.com.
Full fat insurance policy that will cover these types of things when they make those mistakes. But I don't think their insurer would appreciate some form of negligent, reckless behavior that causes them to get into a big fat lawsuit and then having to pay millions and millions of dollars out to hosts for taking people and giving refunds against the terms of service that are in their own contract, or breaking the nature of our relationship, stating that we have a direct booking relationship with guests. Maybe I'm just coming in hot because I'm upset at Airbnb. Why could Sean be upset at Airbnb? For any reason after all the things that they did for them? Well, let me tell you a story. I used to be called Airbnb Automated, and I grew my little business from 10 doors to over 100 doors without using any other platforms aside from Airbnb. And all the videos I did for years were all, here's how to do Airbnb. Great marketing for them. Absolute lovely marketing. I created thousands of hosts. And then one day, their brand protection team says, hey, you can't use Airbnb in your name, and you can't use our logo on your thumbnails. So stop doing that. And I had lawyers tell me to ignore that, to just keep doing my thing, because they got equity out of it. And there's some sort of defense that I could have made because they allowed it for 5 or so years. I decided to change it anyway. I changed this channel to my name because It's time to transcend, to do more than just Airbnb content, to maybe do more than just specifically short-term rental content, and to do more business content, because when we're...
Okay, this is not Airbnb related anymore, but basically what happened to this guy is exactly my problem with Airbnb, is that he's branching out also to other platforms because Airbnb has not been loyal to him and didn't say thank you for bringing us all these customers. And yeah, he has had some other bugs also with Airbnb. So now instead of teaching new short-term rental people that, you know, this is how you list on Airbnb and you only have Airbnb, he's instead teaching like this is how you set up your own booking website, and then you go onto Airbnb, booking.com, verbal.com, you know, you list into all these other places, and this is how you handle that. So it's really a blunder from Airbnb, if you ask me. So this was a pretty long video, but this really gives you the insight on what happens on the other side of Airbnb, what the hosts go through. And I think this really shows you a weakness in the argument that Airbnb is a total monopoly and, you know, everything is rosy with the company, because it's not, but it's still a very good company, very capital light, super high cash flows. I'm more, because I'm happier with the service of booking.com, so I'm going to also look at that company. But yeah, I'm analyzing, no opinions given yet. This is definitely something to keep in mind. So thank you so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.